Brilliant. So hi everyone, I'm Aleck. I'm the creative lead at Callum, and I'm going to try and compress a years-long development process into 20 minutes, so I'm just going to get straight into it. So at Callum, we pride ourselves on our ability to go from pen and paper all the way through to a designed production solution. Within our business, we have three strands. We have a white label strand where we work with OEMs and organizations, but we don't necessarily talk about it. And that's more of a supporting role in the design facility. And we also have a solely by Callum strand. The solely by Callum strand is us doing what we want to design and engineer. And that's, you've seen that in the likes of the Vanquish 25, the Callum lounge chair, and some other bits and pieces. In fact, we've got some really exciting stuff coming up later this year that hopefully we're going to talk with you about as we go further into the year. Then finally, we have the collaboration side to our business. And the collaboration side is where we work hand in hand with a partner and organization, and we help them realize their vision collectively, collaboratively. And that's very much where the Nyobolt link comes in. So Nyobolt is all about ultra-fast charging battery technology. Now, I'm not going to go too much into the technical side of things because I really won't do it justice, but fundamentally, their goal is to take this technology and not so much only put it into cars, but scale it into appliances and handhelds and find a way whereby you can take batteries and install this new level of convenience. And the joy of convenience when it comes to charging is suddenly in the car world, for example, if you, like with the Nyobolt EV, if you can charge a car in 6 minutes, you no longer need to, your goal is no longer range. If you can charge as quickly as you can fill up a car with petrol, then you no longer need 200, 300, 400 miles of range. You could go for something which is smaller, and with smaller batteries comes lighter weights. And suddenly the whole idea of a lightweight, nimble EV sports car is suddenly more of a possibility. And with this in mind, leads us on to this man, Mr. Julian Thompson. Julian designed the original Lotus Elise back in 1994. And I do remind him that in 1994 I was 4 years old, which never makes him feel very good. But at the time, at Lotus, he worked alongside a chap called Steve Hutchins, who is the Vice President of Engineering at Nyobolt. And Steve, having seen the synergies between the Lotus Elise and their battery technology, they thought, why not get Julian involved and try and develop this EV sports car, which has all the benefits of the EV, so the instant torque, all the good stuff that you get with electric powertrains, but none of the downsides. And Julian, obviously being a friend of the brand, having worked for Ian Callum for a while, he brought us along for the ride. So at Callum, we typically follow a sort of a 3-stage design process, and that normally starts with ideation. And then matures into 2 and 3D design, and then ends with a refinement stage. And I'm going to talk you through some of that in the next few slides. So Julian, having designed the car years ago and having obviously thought about it for the last 20 odd years, had a very clear direction on what a new Lotus Elise, an evolved Lotus Elise would look like. And he was very keen that we sort of stay away from the rest-a-mod approach that you see sort of all over the place at the minute, but rather evolve the design into something with improved stance, presence, clean lines, but also some modern details. And what you can see here is some very early sort of sketch ideas that we sort of produced in the first few weeks, working with Julian to try and see if there's a way that we can realize his vision. One thing we were doing in the initial few weeks as well is we were scoping out what it meant. Obviously, we weren't in a position because of the nature of Callum. We're not a huge OEM, so things like unique glasses, unique lamps, were they in the scope? So as you can see here, this is something a little bit more representative of the Lotus Elise, whilst we were playing around with, the glass house, the roof lines, all those things that are iconic to the Elise, but we very quickly realized that this isn't quite the approach that we wanted to take. Now, as I mentioned, the Callum team, the design team, is intentionally small and agile. And as such, I know certainly in the design element that I look after, we're always looking to work with and hire multidisciplinary designers. And what I mean by that is it's far too easy for young designers to get pigeonholed into this guy just does sketches or this girl just does this, et cetera, et cetera. So we're always keen that because we're small and we're agile, when we like to work efficiently and effectively for our clients and for ourselves, that our design team are capable to use all the tools at their disposal. And I mention this only because as you can see here, we probably within the first few weeks of this process, as we were doing some sketches, we really quickly got into quick sketch models, as you can see at the top there. And what that helps us to do is really easily realize some of the surface quality. We knew this car was going to be about surface, it was going to be about taut lines, it was going to be about the way it looks and feels from a surface perspective. I mean, what you see here is 5. We probably did about 20 different iterations, but you can see here a sort of a clear progression and the very subtle differences of the body language and bumper language and all that good stuff. This was all done in Autodesk Alias, which is a tool that we use throughout the whole car design process, but especially at the start, depending on the way that you use it. I know different members of the team use it in different ways. I certainly use it more of a sketch tool, and then there's other members of the team who use it more as a surfacing tool. But you can very quickly churn out some ideas to give you an idea of volumes and proportions. What it also allows us to do, working with Julian, who at the time was in Thailand because of some family commitments. These bottom couple of images here are some screenshots that were sent over to Julian, and he's very quickly just sketched over them on an iPad and was able to give us some direction that we could bake back into the design, which again helps us with the agility and helps us really not so much speed up the process, but gets us to a solution quicker. That brought us on to sort of the conclusion of the ideation stage, whereby we developed a thematic sketch, which is what you see here, which really established the clarity and the vision that we wanted to achieve. I mean, we got to this stage probably within the first 3 to 4 weeks, because we were really keen to get right into the real nitty-gritty element of the design side of things. And you can see the lovely resolution in some of the surfaces here that we really wanted to make sure that we captured as we went through the process. But ultimately, this was our reference point, and this was the vision that everyone bought into, the various stakeholders, Nyobolt, Julian, Ian, all the team wanted to try and achieve this. The challenge then, as you go into the stage we call design, is to take that sketch and put it onto a package and surface it and develop it without losing any of that clarity or losing any of that theme that everyone was bought into and loved. And anyone who's been through a design process will know that it's very easy the second you try and package things to lose a lot of the essence of an original sketch. We were, through working with our engineering team and working with the team at Nyobolt, we very quickly decided that the Lotus Exige platform was the sensible option. From a design perspective, it is wider, it's longer, so we tick the boxes in terms of improved stance, in terms of improved presence. So, we were happy in that regard, but it did mean that we had some tight packaging constraints that we really did need to make sure we ticked the box on. The top left image there is a 3D scan of Julian's car. It's his Series 1 Elise. We captured this purely because, as you see with the likes of 911 Minis, most cars nowadays, they get bigger and bigger and bigger. And the joy of the Lotus Elise and why it has a cult following and why it's nimble and agile and brilliant is because of its size, is because it's tight. It's this lovely little thing. And we were keen that if we were going to try and stretch this new Elise over a larger platform, that we didn't lose the essence of that. So we kept that to hand just to make sure we were referencing back the original Lotus Elise. So at this point, as I said, I personally use Autodesk Alias as a sketch tool. We have members of the team who are far better at it than I am. In this particular case, there's a chap called Luke Sellers, who's very efficient at Alias, and I handed off to him, and it was his job to take the initial sketch that we'd produced and the packaging information from our engineering team and work hand in hand to try and capture that sketch and stretch it over this package without losing any of the essence that we all fell in love with. And at the same time, we'd made the car wider, but we hadn't made the car longer. So we were conscious that there was some design challenges, specifically around the rear bumper, where it started to look a little bit, not so much lardy, but it looked a little bit larger than we were expecting. So we continued to work with Julian to develop all sorts of derivatives. Again, there's a couple of images here. I think this one's called 3.3 and this one's 1. There's 10, 11, 12, 15 different bumper proposals. But whilst doing this, we were also keen to develop the details. There were a lot of opportunities because of the electric powertrain when it comes to the likes of the lamps, the mirrors that were open to us. I think it's a common misconception with EVs that they don't require any cooling, and anyone who's charged the phone will be acutely aware they get warm. So imagine trying to funnel all that electricity and all that power into a battery system. So there is a lot of ambient heat. So we were keen to make sure that if we were designing these rear lamps, we created almost exhaust, counterintuitively to EV, but exhaust to allow all that ambient heat to leave the car, and not just leave it sort of getting warm. And the same with the front. It's a duct which allows more cooling to go into the car. But all these elements were designed in such a way to really uplift the car and make it feel like something a bit more modern, a bit more fresh, whilst being very iconically Lotus Elise. And this is where we got to at the end of the sort of aesthetic design phase. This is what we're calling the design intent. So at this point, we had wrapped the car around the package. We'd worked with the engineering teams. If I was to put a number on it, we were probably around the 70-80% feased element here. We were aware we could make it. We knew it looked good. Excuse me. And so now it's just really a case of working with the team to refine those surfaces and make sure that we're still capturing the essence of what we set out to achieve. Leads us on to the refinement thing. There's a lovely quote here by Ian, in fact. He said it a few times, but design creates order out of chaos, but chaos is often required to simply be creative. So in Ian's head, the chaos is the initial ideation. You fire out all these ideas, and then design is taking those ideas and refining it into something that's an effective product at the end of the day. We had an opportunity to do a scale clay model. Everything we'd done was digital up to this point, which allows the efficiency and the agility that I was talking about. And usually in a much larger design organization, this would be the point where you'd release to go and make a full-size clay model. We didn't feel the need to do a full-size clay model. And again, it's quite a long-winded, costly process to do full-size clay, whereas we were keen to make sure that we had a physical property that we can interrogate. And it's a good job we did, because Ian Callum, being the legendary car designer that he is, went in to review this, and probably after about 10 seconds of reviewing it, highlighted that the front arch and the rear arch had completely different qualities about it. And he was right. I wasn't gonna argue with Ian, but that led us nicely onto this side of refinement, whereby we were taking those comments from Ian, from Julian, those tweaks to some of the lines and the surface condition and quality. And one of the key things about this car is this beautiful core highlight that runs from the front arch all the way to the rear. You can start to see a nod of it here in these zebra stripe shaders seen in Alias. And this tool particularly, especially in the hands of Luke, we can really start to hone those highlights into something that once we produced the panels and the full-size car, that we knew was going to look nuts. So it really allows the guys to work really effectively. We spent a long time on this, trying to get these perfect, which was, as I said, essential to the whole car. And having not had a full-scale property to review intentionally, because of all the tweaks, you don't want to have a clay, then remachine it. It's a very long-winded process. We use VR and Autodesk VRED, which allows us to see the car represented in a digital space at a one-to-one scale, but allows us again to walk around the car and assess the surface quality, assess the highlights, assess some of the lines. It's far too easy when a design is on a screen and isolated to assume things look a certain way, and the second it's full scale, I mean, this car is only 1.2 meters tall. On a screen, it can be as big or as small as you like, but in reality, there's some lines that look entirely different as you perceive them from eye level. So we were always keen to get into VR. The guys all have VR headsets, and we jump in as often as we can. Julian jumps in and has a look, and the Nyobolt team reviewed it as well. But the joy of VRED is that it's a tool that allows you to review. We do all of our reviews in VRED because it gives you an understanding of what the car looks like. It allows us to jump in VR, but also from a color and materials perspective. At this point in time, the car was 98% complete. We were happy with the way it looked. We were happy that it was packaging, but we were going into the point where it was diverging into two separate properties. One was going to be a show car, and one was going to be the technical demonstrator. And we needed to decide what color it was going to be, which sounds like a simple thing to do, but really it isn't. Julian and I had sort of this clear idea that it wanted to be special. I was fascinated by the idea of a liquid metal paint, but in the hands of our color materials designer, she went through all these different options and put them in front of us. And the joy of VRED is it allows you to very quickly, even live sometimes with clients and with design directors, you can change colors and you can tweak it on the fly. And then this bit, the final and arguably the most fun part of what to me sometimes doesn't even feel like a real job. We use VRED to create a series of hero images. At this point, the design's done, it's phased out, it looks as good as it's going to look, and you have the ability to go into the likes of VRED. We're exploring other visualization software at the minute, but really create some hero shots. And the purpose of these typically is for assets to help sell the dream, or for us to really round off the design process with a set of images that really shows off the car in its best light. Yeah, I mean, you can see through some of these images the attention to detail, the surface quality, the way the highlights run, and you haven't done your job correctly if you're getting to this point and you're having to Photoshop various lines and bits and pieces. These images should be able to just translate straight into a bit of visualization software and really sell the dream. I keep coming back to this angle. We've done this angle so many times, but it really helps show you that highlight that I was talking about. You can see this core line that runs from the front haunch all the way through to the back, and then rounds off into the back of the arch. And it's that attention to detail and that resolution of surface that really helps sell this as a product that was designed in 2023 as opposed to something that was designed back in 1994. And then another shot where hopefully it sort of speaks for itself. Now, what was the result of all this hard work? As I said, there was a point where we diverged into two separate avenues of thought. Everything I've shown today resulted in two properties. The one that is photographed here, this is a show car. So this is a see-through show car, and by that I mean that this isn't a driving property. This is something that looks as accurate as realistic as possible. It has functioning lights, it has functioning rear lights, front lights, it has all the details baked into it, wheels that roll, you can look inside it, but it isn't a real car, and the purpose of this was the client, Nyobolt in this instance, wanted to go to Goodwood. The process of getting to technical demonstrator was going to take a little bit longer. So we went off, we made a show car, and then at the same time we were working hand in hand with our engineering team to develop the technical demonstrator. But as you can see here, it's as representative of a real car as you can get. All these details here are all details not just designed to be aesthetically pleasing, but also designed to have a function. They're designed with our engineering team so that the lights, for example, they are reflective of the lights that you will see on the real car. The charge port, it's a real charge port put onto a show car, so it works as expected. So there's nothing here that's fake, as it were, even down to this camera, which, you know, when I designed this the first time around, I was sort of laughed out of the room. The idea of a see-through thing where you can see circuit boards, they weren't terribly keen on, but we overcame that obstacle because we worked so tightly with our engineering colleagues. What's next? As I said, there's 2 properties. That was a show car that was photographed earlier in the year that I showed you, and this is a live client product, so I don't have too many exciting images to show, but I can tease some bits and pieces of the real car that we are working on at the minute. There is an aspiration that it will be available Q4 this year, so hopefully you should see it driving around as we're testing it. But we'll certainly have more news on this, and it will be, as I say, it will look like the show car. It will have a fully working EV powertrain. It will charge in 6 minutes, and it will have a similar weight to, you know, other competitive petrol, lightweight, nimble sports cars. So it really is going to be a compelling thing. It's going to be really, really interesting. You're going to get the agility that you're used to seeing in the Lotus Elise with all the torque of an EV, and you can charge in 6 minutes. And I hope you will agree that it looks pretty good too. So that was a very condensed year-long process of designing the Nyobolt EV. So thank you for listening.